Good evening, everyone. It is Tuesday, November 21st, 2023 at 5:45 p.m. Thank you for your patience as we transition from our work session into this regular meeting of the Wake County Board of Education, which we are calling to order. I would like to welcome those of you that are watching at home and those that are here in person. Our meetings are conducted for the purpose of carrying on the official business of the school system. The public is cordially invited to attend board meetings in order to observe the board as it conducts its business. Persons who willfully interrupt, disrupt, or cause disturbances at an official meeting may be directed to leave by the presiding officer. Members of the audience should show respect for speakers by refraining from loud comments or other disruptions. Disruptions by any person or persons of a public meeting will be subject in accordance with General Statute 143-318.17, and we ask that all attendees please remain seated. And I'd also like to note that Mr. Hershey is with us in virtual presence. We will make sure that we are able to capture his voice as we vote, which may take a little bit additional time, but we'll see how rusty I am with WebEx. We do have a quorum, so if you all will stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you. We now turn it over to Dr. Taylor.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Mr. Vice Chair, members of the board. We certainly thank our community for being here with us today, both in the meeting and online. The Campaign for Grade Level Reading has recognized our school district and our invaluable partners for two efforts to improve childhood literacy and addressing learning loss in the wake of the pandemic. We were named the Pacesetter Honors Community for two collaborative initiatives, Wake Together and Wake Up and Read's Reaching Families, Raising Readers program. Last year, we partnered with the YMCA of the Triangle and the Helps Education Fund to create Wake Together, a tutoring program specifically aimed at helping students who fell behind during the pandemic. Wake Together has rallied community partners, families, and schools to improve educational and social outcomes for students. Wake Up and Read was awarded for its work to slow learning loss and accelerate equitable learning recovery through tutors and out-of-school learning opportunities. I recently had the opportunity to meet members of the Wake Up and Read Coalition meeting, as well as those working directly with Wake Together. The work they are doing to promote early literacy and combat learning loss is absolutely essential to meeting the goals laid out in our strategic plan. As the sixth core belief in the strategic plan reminds us, we need the support of our community volunteers and partner organizations like the Wake Up and Read Coalition, the YMCA of the Triangle, and the Helps Education Fund if we are to be successful. I'm proud of the work that's being done and pleased that our efforts have been recognized at the national level. We look forward to bringing you more on this at the December board meeting. Third grade students from 3 elementary schools got a big surprise last week when they each received a brand new bicycle and helmet, courtesy of the Triangle Spokes Group and Bikes for Kids. The entire third grade classes at Creech Road, East Garner, and Rogers Lane Elementary Schools were surprised with the announcement at an assembly. Students were asked to write an essay about reading the book, Think Big, Work Hard, Be Kind, No Excuses. They arrived at the assembly thinking that only the top 3 essays win new bikes. It was a joyous moment for these students as well as their teachers and families. I'm thrilled for these students that they will get to experience the happiness and independence that comes with having your very own bike. This is yet another example of our community partners going above and beyond to support the well-being of our students. My heartfelt thanks to the Spokes Group and Bike for Kids for this generous gift. I will tell the board that this is one of the more exciting events I've been able to be a part of. And there were a lot of teary eyes for students in the room, and it was absolutely wonderful. In closing, I would like to offer my condolences to the friends and family of 2 longtime supporters of our students who passed away last week. Wake County Commissioner Dr. James West, and Ralph Capps, the President and CEO of the Wake County Boys and Girls Club. Dr. West leaves a legacy of steadfast service to all of Wake County, and particularly to the residents of Southeast Raleigh. He represented his constituents on the Raleigh City Council from 1999 until 2010, when he was appointed to serve on the Wake County Board of Commissioners. He remained on the board until his untimely passing. Dr. West believed in the power of education to lift people up, and he advocated fiercely to expand services to children and families. For example, he was a driving force behind the successful effort to build Southeast Raleigh Elementary School alongside a new YMCA, a treasured community resource. He also served as chair of the Garner School's Area Advisory Council and as president of the Smith Magnet Elementary School PTA. And of course, Dr. West supported our entire district by working with his colleagues on the county commission to provide the funding we need to be successful. Mr. Capps moved to Raleigh in 1973 to become executive director of what was then known as the Raleigh Boys Club, which had about 200 members and operated out of a single building. Today, 7 clubs serve about 6,000 young people each year through the organization now known as the Boys and Girls Club of Wake County. The mission of the Boys and Girls Club is to enable all young people, especially those with the greatest need, to reach their full potential as productive and responsible citizens. The club provides a safe place for young people to learn and grow as they are mentored by caring adults. Countless thousands of Wake County children have benefited from Mr. Capps' bold vision and energetic leadership. Just last year, Mr. Capps received the Vernon Malone Friend of Education Award from the Wake Ed Partnership, the organization's highest honor, given only to those who have set a high standard for selfless dedication. Indeed, selfless dedication was the hallmark of both Mr. Capps and Dr. West, true public service until the end. May we honor their legacy by continuing the work of serving the young people of Wake County with the same determination and passion that they each demonstrated throughout their lives. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Dr. Taylor. Certainly giants within our community. I don't think you can think of the Raleigh Boys and Girls Club without thinking of Ralph Capps. And we know that he has been so integral to so many of the partnerships here in Wake County. He passed away on November 17th. I think many of us found out either yesterday or today about his passing. And we just want to extend those wishes to his family, both by blood and by community, because there are certainly many, many people in Wake County that credit Mr. Capps and the Boys and Girls Club with their success. I also want to, continuing with this somber note, lift up former Commissioner Betty Lou Ward, who passed away on the 8th of November. She served on the Wake County Commission beginning in 1988 until her retirement in 2016. And that's 28 years as a commissioner. And she was a fierce advocate for our school system during that time. And then Dr. West, I think that shocked many, many of us at this board, many of us in this community. And I couldn't think of a way to remember Dr. West without pulling a quote from Stephen Covey. When you engage in a work that taps your talent and fuels your passion, that rises out of a great need in the world that you feel drawn by conscience to meet, therein lies your voice, your calling, your soul's code. And Dr. West's soul's code was the service to his community, whether it was through the North Carolina State Cooperative Extension, fighting for voting rights, including founding the Wake County Voter Education Coalition, his service on Raleigh City Council, or as a Wake County Commissioner. It's really hard to imagine this community without his voice there, and just want to extend our condolences to his family, his children, his colleagues on the commission, and all of those folks that have been blessed to even have a conversation with that man. And In keeping with Dr. West, he would tell us that the main thing is to keep the main thing the main thing. And I'm going to move on to more school board business, but certainly will be a huge loss on all three counts in our community. Many of our board members attended the North Carolina School Boards Association annual conference in Greensboro. I want to give a shout out to former Wake County Public School staff member, Dr. Marvin Connolly, who is the current superintendent of Cumberland County Schools and has the great honor of being the North Carolina Superintendent of the Year. And although he's no longer in Wake County Public Schools, we certainly want to extend our congratulations to him. Yes, thank you. I'd like to thank Dr. Rhonda Taylor Bullock for coming and beginning implicit bias training with our board. Last year we passed an equity policy, and we want to make sure that we are modeling top down how important this work is. We see the data on how there are gaps in student academic success. And this is one of those ways that we can look at that data and interpret that data through an equity lens. I'd like to thank board members who brought this idea to me. And I hope that whoever is the next chair of this school board continue with this work, because it's something that not only impacts children, but our work in this community as well. Last Friday was National Substitute Educators Day. So many thanks to the many folks who have signed up to substitute teach. It is a unique job where you step in sometimes for an hour, a day, sometimes long term, and you then are the person for many children. And so just many, I had no idea until last Friday when one of my PTSAs posted about it, but I'm very grateful that there's a moment to thank our substitute teachers. And then lastly, well, not lastly, almost lastly, the North Carolina Museum of Arts has an exhibit that is running through the spring about the creative lives of educators. And many of our Wake County educators are highlighted in this exhibit, including Bethany Drew from Broughton Magnet High School, Eric Gimmons from Vernon Malone College and Career Academy, Caroline Haw from Lacey Elementary, Brian Enfield from Abbott's Creek, Trish Kenlaw from Green Level High School, Taryn Lovett from North Garner Middle School, Slater Mapp from Green Level High School, Aaron McConnell from Apex Friendship Elementary, Dawn McCormick Dom from Highcroft Drive Elementary, Michael McHugh from Stow Magnet, Quentin Neal from Bug Magnet Elementary, and Beth Palmer from Partnership Magnet Elementary School. Our art teachers are creative, amazing people, and we are blessed to have their gifts and talents in service to our students, but many of them, most of them, all of them are artists in their own right, so it's wonderful to see their creative outlook shared not just in their school community, but beyond with our state. I also want to highlight that this December begins Ms. Johnson Hostler's 10th year of service on the school board, so thank you for being a constant and continuing all of your work here. And I could go on, but I know you don't want me to, so I'll stop. And so I will end with a happy birthday to Mr. Swanson. Thank you for doing your civic duty on your birthday. And that concludes my comments. I'll pass it over to Vice Chair Haggerty.
Thank you, Chair Mahaffey. As you know, this is a special week. We have our Thanksgiving holiday coming up. I hope that Mr. Swanson is thankful that we will not be singing to him this evening, because no one would enjoy that, especially if I'm part of that chorus. Several things, though, a little more seriously. We've heard already about some of the community leaders that we've lost, and I am thankful for their service. I had the opportunity to know both, or all Mr. Capps, Commissioner Betty Lou Ward, and Dr. James West. I don't want to repeat a lot of what's already been said, But I will say, particularly with Ralph Capps, when you have someone who's a leader of a nonprofit, oftentimes you see them in their work and you may not know who's responsible. But if you just go out and you look at the community and some of the tributes that we're hearing from so many people whose lives were directly impacted by his work, it really is outstanding. There's a fantastic one by Coach Moten, in particular, and this really is a loss for the community, but I'm going to be thankful for the lives that he helped inspire and motivate along the way. In addition, Dr. West, I think we were all surprised, having seen Dr. West just in the last few weeks, and having conversations with him, that we would lose him so instantly. I will tell you that I'd had a conversation with Dr. West not too long ago. Actually, I'll say Dr. Taylor. It was during the day while we were doing our superintendent interviews. And what was supposed to be a 20-minute conversation extended to an hour and a half, because what he was speaking on was engagement and kind of the division and polarity in society and the importance of engagement and civility. And I don't know that I ever have encountered any instance of Dr. West presenting himself as anything more than the most civil, gentlemanly public figure. And he had asked that whoever our new superintendent might be, whether we could do more out in the community, do more to take, ourselves out beyond Cary and Crossroads. And I filled a couple pages of legal pad with that, and I'd love to share with you some of Dr. West's ideas. I'd hoped that he would have the opportunity to present them to you directly, but in his absence, I'd love to take those to you. So again, we are thankful for Dr. West, Mr. Capps, and Commissioner Betty Lou Ward. Additionally, as Chair Mahaffey had said, I'm thankful for our staff. We had a wonderful opportunity, a wonderful meeting to highlight some of the staff at the State School Boards Association meeting with Dr. Clinton Robinson and Dr. Leanne Alford Keith, who were talking about our strategic planning process. And, I know Chair Mahaffey was in both sessions. Fellow board member Johnson Hosler was in another one. I attended one. We had an opportunity to really see our staff come alive, highlight the good work we're doing here. And that is so important because, Wake County can be a beacon for the rest of the state. And, our experience with what we did with our strategic plan really does stand out and really does shine. And when you do good work, you need to tell people about that work. And so I'm glad that, Dr. Taylor, you're able to loan them to us for the conference, take them away from their daily duties here, but to try to move into that role of some statewide leadership. So thank you for that. Barring some surprise, this meeting is likely one of the last we'll have under our current chair, Lindsay Mahaffey, at least this year. And I want to thank Chair Mahaffey for...
You can stop there. That's
No. I want to thank you for your 2 years of chair and your previous 2 years as vice chair. And if anyone was paying attention, there was a year that kind of blurred there. Anytime you come in knowing that you're going to face a statewide pandemic, and still dealing with issues of masks and lockdowns and taking on that challenge, that's absolutely heroic. And taking on those challenges, and then the things we didn't expect, having to go and select a new superintendent. Every member of this board knows what a Herculean task that was, and especially when so many of our board members are new and just finding their footing. To lead a board of a majority new members, to select a new superintendent, and to do everything to try to get us back on the road to normalcy is just truly amazing. So I don't know if you and your family will be traveling back to Paradise Island for the holidays, but I hope you get some well-deserved rest and relaxation. I just wanted you to know personally that I'm thankful for all of our board members, but for your leadership these past few years.
Thank you. And this isn't a political statement. I woke up stuffy, and I didn't want to get anybody some crud before the holidays.
We're thankful for your thoughtfulness.
Thanks. Ms. Johnson,
I
are
did have
you have more?
more.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were done.
That's all right. And maybe I should have ended it there, but
No,
I
keep
did.
going.
I did want to thank the families that have taken their time to engage with the school board during the reassignment process. Specifically, we've had dozens who've reached out personally to take time to write, to come here to present public comment, attend the public hearings, as well as hundreds who've contributed thoughts on the thought exchange and others. It's an immensely difficult task to balance our state legal requirements for our school populations, to manage a district-wide bus system with a shortage of drivers, to manage the growth and building new schools, especially when in past decades we haven't done what we needed to do to keep up with our school construction. And I'm very thankful for our current county commissions and their leadership and investment in our schools, but we are still behind in where we need to be. But back to reassignment, I wanted to personally thank Jennifer and Jackie and Devin and Dave, Susan, Mohit, Ashley, Preeti, and so many others who've really gotten down and looked at the work that our assignment office does, that have looked at specific suggestions. And, I'm very sorry that we haven't yet found a path that could meet the district's goals and also, let them stay at the schools that they'd prefer. But I think that they've done a lot to lift up the voices of that community. I think they've raised some very important questions about the disruption to families with calendar misalignment. And I hope that we can make this experience better out of the feedback that they've provided. And so I just wanted to thank them for their advocacy too. Thank you.
Sorry for trying to cut you off earlier. Ms. Johnson-Hostler.
Thank you. Like my colleagues, I would be remiss if I did not add my sentiments to the room for those that we've lost. It is truly a reminder of our mortality. As you get older, you know it's real, but there is still a part of you that it becomes crystal clear when people you literally just spoke to are no longer here. And so I certainly felt the reminder with Commissioner Ward, then Dr. West, and then was just almost floored last night when I got the last text around Mr. Capps. All giants in this community, all supporters of our schools, our students, and our communities. And I said this on my social media post about Dr. West because he never left me without a Bible passage and a Covey quote. And so, so those things will always ring true to me. And I saw so many people post, that he was a mentor and didn't know he was a mentor. I would say he did. Every time I spoke to him, he's like, it's so good to invest in the young people. I'm so glad the young people are doing it. That's what mentors do. So you don't always have to make it formal. He was very clear that his role, especially for me personally in my life, was to ensure that I understood our government structure, ensure that I had what I needed and understood the importance of representing families, and in his words, our most vulnerable families, which he prided himself on ensuring that we lifted that voice. Every time we went to the commissioners for money, I was always assigned to Dr. West. And I'd say, we already know the conversation. Raising taxes directly, disproportionately impacts our most vulnerable communities. So where do we go from here? And inevitably, we came to the same agreement that education for both of us as Black people speaks to why we're here and how we got here. And so he understood having that conversation that could be very contentious, but he did it in such a graceful, I can't even describe it. I mean, his mannerism just speaks to the tenderness that he has and love he has for his community, but also very much so strong presence as well. And so it's funny because, of course, like Ms. Mahaffey, I was like, there will have to be a Covey quote. And the one that he last quoted to me was, if you just remember, seek first to understand, then to be understood. That is the best gift to being a public servant. And I believe he was correct in that. And then lastly, I kind of chuckled, Dr. Taylor, when you mentioned his role in the Garner schools. His children are my age; they're adults, and it is still a part of how he talks about who he is, which I think is just a beautiful thing that 30 plus years post being the PTA president, it is still part of how he describes his resume and his legacy. And so I know the Garner community also deeply, dearly loves him because he is very clear that his kids attended Wake County Public Schools in Garner. And so when you said that, I was like, he would certainly be pleased that that was a part of how you talked about him, because I always tease, I was like, your kids are my age. And he'd say, yes, but I was the PTA president at Smith Elementary School. So thank you. And I know that he is certainly smiling down on us and appreciative for making sure that the next generation understand the shoulders that we stand on. And he often talked about the need to build our bench around how we talk about our legacy. And so I feel like all of us at this table tonight are doing that. So I know that he greatly appreciates that. I won't be as long-winded because I had not planned to be this long-winded about Dr. West, but Mr. Capps the same way. Every single year, if I missed my visit to the Boys and Girls Club, he would have his staff call me. Even though I was just there, he would remind them that I had not been there this year. And he always made time to talk to me about our partnership with Wake County Public Schools and how gracious he was. And I still was stunned that he has been there for 50 years. I looked at Vice Chair Haggerty because we both are nonprofit execs, and I'm like, well, I'm halfway there. This is my 25th year. So I'm like, oh, that's also a sense of mortality. But I think, again, his love sounded like he just started. Every time he talked about it, it was still a fresh new perspective on how to become better partners, better community engagement. And I would be remiss if I didn't lift up the work that they did to ensure that the students that they serve had both teaching and learning spaces in their centers during COVID. That was very important to him. And he was like, I know it's COVID, but you got to get out here and see what we're doing. Because they physically changed their space so that our students had teaching and learning space in those facilities during COVID. And again, it speaks to the way that people love our district, and we can get lost in the noise that we hear that doesn't exemplify the way that people love our district and love our students and love our school community. And they truly did. And so it is not, I'm not saying that just for you all, I'm also saying it to me as a reminder that people truly are invested in Wake County Public Schools and the outcomes and the impact that it has on our students and community at large. So I'm grateful for them. Speaking of Garner, I had a great opportunity to attend the Garner Stars. Many of our communities, I know Garner and East Wake do their own student stars like we do our Wake County school-wide, but it's all the Garner schools. And Dr. James Overman was the MC. He did a great job of transitioning and using puns to introduce the next school each time, which was amazing to see and experience with the community. I also experienced something you rarely see. People were taking turns sitting on the front row to see their kids. Again, it just, for me, small things that remind you how beautiful we are as a community. I was like, oh, I'll give up my seat. They're like, no, we have a row over here that's just for parents to transition as their students took the stage. So again, I've appreciated these gentle reminders of our humanity. And it's also why I'm an eternal optimist, because our humanity reminds me every day of why it's important to have hope. And I will also say several of us have been visiting Wake Med. Many people know they're building 150 new beds in Garner. A large number of them will be dedicated to our kids who are suffering mental health crises. And so we've been in deep conversation with them, learning about the work that they already do, but also making sure that they will have access and information to learn about the work that we currently do to meet the needs of our students. But it is, I would say, a budding partnership that again, I think is important to let our community know that there are many people listening, including I had an amazing, I always call, you all know, I get my hair done often. So I believe that stylists are literally next to me having a good therapist. And so I also heard from an amazing stylist who really talked me through the number of students that she is providing quasi-mental health services to, and asked me, how do I get this access in other ways? And so again, just out of the blue, she was like, I heard you talk about this at the last board meeting. I want you to know that this is not my profession, but this is important to me. So our community is listening and are engaged. Even when we can't make the decisions that we know that parents know are right for their kids when it comes to assignment. There will be no surprise. I've been very clear at the community how I will vote tonight on our student assignment. It is one of my largest assignment moves in my almost 10-year tenure on this board, and so I feel it deep in my gut that parents won't all be able to have what they need. But what I do know that those parents did, many of them are new to our community, have language access barriers. They have sent a representative to speak with me. I've met with them in community, and they have done a great job of understanding that the way in which we assign schools and build schools is much bigger than just those of us who are sitting at this table. But they began to have the conversation with their local leaders around when you're, and we've talked about this definitely in Western Wake, but it's certainly new to my part of the district that I live in, is to have that conversation with our municipalities around how do they actively engage, which isn't just calling saying, hey, board member, can you not move the people, which is an ask that they can make, but really, truly, they're asking, what can we do? How do we not get here next time? So thank you to those families, but also thank you to those community leaders who also reached out and said, we didn't really like getting those 100+ calls either. So how do we do better next time? So thank you to the community for still sharing and advocating even once we talked about what the outcomes would be, which will be difficult. And then lastly, I'd be remiss, you all know I love Wake Up and Read. I have a great media specialist at South Garner High School who has also now putting up, which I love when you see the little boxes of reading material. So she is spreading the love of literacy and, as I said, building a legacy of learning in our community. And so they're little purple boxes that you can take your books from. And so thank you very, very much, Chris, and for all the work that you're doing at South Garner and spreading the love of reading in Garner and surrounding communities. Thank you.
Mr. Swanson.
Thank you. I'll start my comments off by also paying my tributes to Dr. West, and thankful for the knowledge that he poured into me in a short little time being on this board. But I have to say, Dr. West was a true statesman, and you don't really see too many statesmen in public service, and so I'm grateful for that. And every time I would engage with him, there was always a story or something, a history lesson that I learned that I never knew. And I don't think anyone knew the history of this merger of this county or this district better than Dr. West. And so I am very grateful. You often reminded those stories of how and the struggles that they engaged, and also the way they were able to overcome those struggles. And so education is that great equalizer that allows many families, no matter who or where you come from, to have a opportunity of achieving that American dream. But we also know that there are obstacles that are there that we learned about in the implicit bias training that hinders families from having those opportunities. So I think it's often a great reminder for us to center the work that we have to do, and all of us play a part in that work, and to continue moving the pendulum forward to creating that just society that Dr. King and many others often referenced. So I did receive an email from the Green Hope High School journalism team, and wanted to give them a major shout out of some of the great things that they have been able to do. And so I'm going to read this, and I'm glad I got my glasses because I am now another decade older. My vision is not as sharp as it should be. I know. It's the big 30. Glad to be here. It's the big 30. So let me read this really quickly. So Green Hope High School has produced the #1 online newspaper site in the nation. They have also been recognized by school newspapers online for a distinguished site, excellence in writing, excellence in multimedia, audience engagement, site design excellence, page design excellence, excellence in continuous coverage. And those are just a few of the great things that they have done. And I can say that I have gotten many emails from their staff to give input on certain things and interviews. And I do apologize because sometimes I miss their deadlines, but still send it in. But they have done a great job. So if you do not have if you want to learn more about it, please make sure you go to Green Hope. It's ghfalcons.com to see all of the great work that they've done and that they're going to continue to do. So great job, Falcons. Also, I had the opportunity to visit Salem Elementary and Salem Middle School yesterday and see the great things that were happening, and just to tour and see the great learning that happens. And I think our staff does a great job of fostering learning and fostering those environments that students feel safe and seen as they are able to access the rigorous courses that we offer. And I thought it was very funny. I was not funny, but a good idea. And I'm hoping that we can get them to present at my BAC next year. But the PTAs at Salem Elementary is creating a volunteer kind of like dating app for parents and teachers to come in. So if you need a parent to come in and read to a kid for like 30 minutes, you can go on their little app and put your request in, and they'll match you with the parent that can meet those needs. So I thought that was very exciting and a great innovative way of really showing what that community looks like, because, you know, we often hear that families do not really get to engage, but I think they were doing a great opportunity and a great model of showing how to build those relationships. And so I'm looking forward to hopefully giving them a little time to get it together to present at my BAC meeting next year, since they're all planned early this year, to kind of talk about how we can use that as an example moving forward to engage building those partnerships. And there was one other thing that I was going to mention along those lines, but again, it has escaped me. That's why you should write things down. So if it was something else I was supposed to highlight about a school in District 9, please charge it to my head and not my heart, and give me a little grace, since it is my birthday today and I'm doing my due diligence as being an effective board member. But thank you all, and to those pieces, and I know I'll go into this a little bit later, and so I'll save that. But as we go into this season of Thanksgiving, I just hope that we all take a little time and do some reflection and find ways that we can bring back that civility that is so missing in this country as we move forward, and understanding that we may not always agree on certain things, but having that discourse does not often create the solutions that we want. How do we have those tough conversations and then agreeing to disagree at times? So just want to put that in the atmosphere, and also to those families, wishing you all a happy Thanksgiving with your families.
Ms. Caulfield?
Thank you. I can certainly sympathize with the glasses, although I'm not 30. Like to be again, but I just want to give a quick announcement that our next board advisory is on December 4th. We're going to do another breakout session, and we'll send some information out through the PTA. Congratulations to for Mr. Connolly for winning the 2024 Superintendent of the Year as well. We had the pleasure of, some of us longer than others, but getting to know him. He's a wonderful man, and I'm happy to see that he was recognized. My focus continues to be on effective resources for our students so they have the tools and knowledge necessary to become the most that they can be. I believe that if one wants to get to the best outcomes, they need to get to the source of any problems, issues, or challenges so that one can grow and real solutions that could be most effective. For our children, reading, writing, math, science, life skills, critical thinking, they're all invaluable tools. And that will arm our children with what they need. It needs to always be our main focus, our number one. From there, our children can move mountains, which brings me to that. I just recently watched a movie with Matthew Perry. I still can't believe that he has left us, and may he rest in peace. He has left us with decades of laughter and so much more. He was a big advocate for men that struggled with addiction and wanted to give back. I know he'll be missed, but he was in a movie where he was a teacher, and his role was basically, it's a true story of a teacher up in Harlem. And he didn't want to give up on the children that were in this one classroom. In the movie, they appeared to be not the best academically, not the best behaved, but he, Mr. Rob Clark is his name in real life, he had the support and the tools that he needed. He was also very creative, and even more so, he had the drive, which I know our teachers have. We have amazing teachers, and what makes them take that journey to teach. By the end of the story, one of the students who challenged him the most is also the one that he reached the most. And she had an incredibly challenging story. And it turned he turned it around, and she wound up being one of those gifted children that would have otherwise fell through the cracks. She received not only the highest grade than anyone in the class, but also in the school and also in the state. So it was a great story and a reminder that given the proper tools, our children can reach their potential and they can soar. And now I'm going to flip to an even more local story, and one that's more current, and one that I'm proud to share in District 1 from Wake Forest High School. I saw ABC 11 had done a story on Adriana DeBose, and I hope I'm saying that right, she said that, who spoke about having always had ambition, but she also had advocacy that she felt pushed her to her true potential and helped her reach her dreams, and now here she is starring in the Disney movie Wish. So, and she was interviewed sharing her story and what that meant to her, and she said, young people are the future, and giving them every opportunity to find their passion and to acknowledge that they are not their circumstances. She followed her dreams, had ambition, but also the support and drive that got her as far as she can go. So congratulations to her for her success story, and a proud moment for CC and Company Dance, which is up here in North Raleigh, and also Wake Forest High School. And just this last week, I attended another theater show at Heritage High School for Matilda with some of our very talented high school students, and it just always amazes me the talent that is just right here before us. And I have no doubt that I will see some of these children on a stage somewhere shining as they continue their school journey, after their school journey. And I can't wait to see where they take that to another level. My hope is that our children all over recognize their gifts, their beauty, their value through support and advocacy, but also through giving them the resources and tools they need. I always believe that knowledge is power. So whether we support our families through tutoring, remediation, math and literacy curriculum, vocational skills, arts, or music, they will find their dreams, and it's important for us to all be there and be present. My focus is on giving children the tools that they need and making sure our teachers have those resources. We have incredible and amazing teachers, and we need to value them and support them. Our teachers are so influential in our kids' lives. They're also the mentors that our children need, an extra eye when they need it, and so much more. And I think that we are lucky to have the amazing teachers that we have here in Wake County. One of the things I know that is challenging for staff, our teachers, and our families, mostly our students, is mental health struggles. It makes achievements sometimes that much more challenging. And this week, Ms. Mahaffrey and Ms. Johnson-Hostler joined me at Wake Med to talk about joining forces and breaking down the silos effect to find ways to approach effective and meaningful mental health support for our children and our staff. I appreciate the conversation that we were all able to have, and we are trying to open those silo doors, all well-intended silos, but they're separate. So getting them together and meshing, and as we navigate through that and figure out what this could look like for our students, bless you, and what would be most effective. I would love to hear from our students. I would love for the students to reach out to us and kind of share some ideas that they have, because at the end, we're trying to reach what are the goals that our students have. We're trying to reach out to our students and see how we could most help them. So I would love to hear from some of our students. There's many facets to mental health, there's many levels, and there's no one size that fits all. I hope we can break some of the barriers with resources and understanding the struggles that our teens face and that our staff have. Getting them the resources out to the families who struggle with mental health. Mental health, behavior, academics, emotional and physical, it all affects everything that we do. And it's an important subject, and I hope that everyone around us will team up and be part of the solution. Like Ms. Johnson-Hostler said, it really is a team effort for everybody, at home, the teachers, all of us. I hope we could remove those silos and realize that us working together, we can move mountains. I pray everyone has a good Thanksgiving and takes a moment to count our blessings and realize that there's always plenty to be grateful for. And it could also be a time for us to reach out to those who are struggling around us and include them in your space and are your traditions. If nothing else, call to somebody and send good wishes. So happy Thanksgiving to everybody.
Ms. Waters.
Thank you, Chair Mahaffey. I, too, want to stand in solidarity with all who are mourning the loss of Commissioner West. And as Ms. Johnson-Hostler said, he always left you with a scripture. And the one that he last spoke to me was from Matthew 25:40, which says, "It matters what you do to the least of those," with such intense emotion. And I really cherish that, because it is truly what matters for us as public servants, and he left a legacy that really reflects that he cared about the least of those in the community. And so I feel honored to have had the opportunity to know him and to live in his district. And so I know there are so many cherished memories that will live on. And I'm still processing the news of Mr. Capp's passing. He loved his work, and the spirit of excellence was evident throughout all of the work of the Boys and Girls Club of Wake County, and his memory will live on through thousands of children. I had a very interesting Saturday morning, and I want to thank one of our amazing community service advocates, Mr. Troy Johnson of YM4C, for the sweet opportunity to walk in the Raleigh Christmas Parade on Saturday with dozens of students from District 4. It helped me to center my why, to hear boys and girls from my community chanting Southeast Raleigh, Southeast Raleigh at the front of the parade. And it was so wonderful to walk with Ms. Brown, who is a first grade teacher at Southeast Raleigh Elementary, and she was a kindergarten teacher, and she moved up with her students, and she is looping. And if you're familiar with that process, the data shows that outcomes are really increased when teachers move up with their students. And so just to be able to hear her experience as we walked in the parade was really wonderful, and so really cherished that time. And I hope all who participated in the parade were able to find some joy as we head into the holiday season, especially through the Broughton High School Marching Band. Truly amazing. So really a great representation throughout the parade of Wake County Public School System. And I want to lift up next Tuesday, which is Giving Tuesday, and it's a time set aside for people to show generosity in a way that is meaningful to them. Every act of kindness that helps meet a need is important. And one of the ways that I want to lift up particularly is the growing issue around clothing security. I had a chance to attend an event recently and sat at the table with the executive director for an organization called Note in the Pocket. They work very closely with our school social workers to help students in our buildings have clothing so it's not a barrier for students to access instruction. And they always need clothing to be able to distribute to the community, and they need adult-sized clothing. As you know, children come in adult sizes, and so if you're out shopping on Black Friday, or if you have some Kohl's cash or whatever your pleasure is, think about the students in our building, and that's a good way to give back. And I also want to lift up the District 4 BAC meeting, which will be on Thursday, November 30th at Knightdale Elementary School. We are fortunate to be welcoming Dr. Maria Rosa Rangel to connect with us around community engagement. And lastly, I want to say how thankful I am for Ms. Johnson-Hostler and her 10 years of service. When I was appointed to the board, I don't want to cry, but when I was appointed to the board, she set aside time for me every single week, on top of being a mom, a wife, a nonprofit executive, a policy guru, all things amazing, and truly a virtuous woman. And so I don't know how you ran every 2 years for so many years, and so you are to be celebrated for all your contributions to public schools, and really thank you for the time you've taken with me and the investment, and just really thankful for always being willing to share everything you've had with me to help me be successful. So super thankful, and I hope everybody has a tremendously happy Thanksgiving with all your favorite desserts, and so thank you.
Ms. Edmonds.
Thank you. I knew you all would say it better than me. So in regard to Dr. West, I join everyone at this table in mourning that loss. I had just seen and spoken to him at the State of the County address, which Ms. Chair Mahaffey and I attended last Monday. So it was is still a shock. And I send my condolences to his family and his, wide circle who loved him. On November 9th, I attended a wonderful Veterans Day celebration at Penny Road Elementary. I was able to spend time with some of the veterans and learn details about their service in various branches and various locations in service to our country. The students and the staff at Penny Road did an outstanding job celebrating these men and women, including a slideshow of what seemed to be at least 100 family members of the students who have served our country. Thanks to Penny Road for including me and all of those in attendance. Thank you, Chair Mahaffey, for arranging training for the board with We Are. While I was not able to be there, I saw the news story about it and agree with you, Chair Mahaffey, that this board must also engage in equity work that we have put forth in our equity policy and our strategic plan. We must commit to this work and training just as we are asking our staff to do. I was participating in that work in Charlotte instead of here at the Southern Education Foundation conference. The theme was Miles to Go, Fulfilling the Promise of Racial Equity in Education. And this 4-day conference was one of the best that I have ever been to. And session topics included equity in early childhood education, school funding, leading in equity work, engaging with parents in the community, school segregation, the harms and impacts of school segregation. And there was so much more. Dr. Chavis was there too, and I know that he and I are anxious to share with you some new resources and information that we gained over that 4 days. It was outstanding. With regard to our vote today on the new assignment plan, I'll just say that while this is my first time casting such a vote, I have seen this process, watched this process play out many times. It is always challenging. It is always emotional. We don't take it lightly. Overcrowded schools are not good for students or teachers, and under-enrolled schools aren't good either for students or teachers. They're also not a good use of taxpayer funds to have space available and not try to maximize that space. To the families that will change schools, I hope you know that the staff at the schools receiving you are ready to welcome your children, and I know they're also ready to welcome you and your engagement and your support in that school community. I want to thank Ms. Johnson-Hostler and Ms. Waters for their advocacy, particularly on making sure that we considered equity in the development and approval of this plan. Last two reminders, it's still LGBTQ plus History Month, and you can learn more at glesen.org, glsen.org. 2, we'll hold our District 5 BAC meeting next Monday, November 27th at Penny Road Elementary at 5:30 p.m. Dr. Taylor is our guest, and after his portion of the program, we will hear an update from the Office of Equity Affairs, including a Q&A session. I hope everyone has a safe and happy Thanksgiving holiday. Thank you.
Dr. Ng.
Thank you, and happy birthday, Mr. Swanson. You'll get to an age where you'll have to take off your glasses. First, I also want to extend my condolences to the family of Dr. West. I really appreciate the tributes that you guys have expressed, and I wish I had had the chance to know him. His death is a great loss to the community, and I will keep his family in my prayers. The Board Advisory Council for District 3 held its meeting at Heritage Elementary School last Monday, and I want to thank Principal Harmon for hosting the meeting and my BAC leadership team for helping to put the evening together. We had a great privilege of having our Superintendent, Dr. Taylor, to be our speaker for the evening. He talked about his background from Mississippi, his family, and how he got into the education field. He also gave an account of his first 100 days and then opened it up for a time of Q&A. One thing that stood out for me was his answer to the question of how to handle the growing number of charter schools in northern Wake County. This was one of the questions we actually asked him in our interview process. And his reply was that he respects parents wanting to choose what is best for their children. So we just have to make sure that Wake County Public Schools offers clearly the best option. I really appreciated that response because we all know that in this day and age, public school is not the only game in town. In order for public schools to stay competitive, we do need to, quote unquote, know the market and to understand the dynamics that drive parents to choose one school option over another. We need to stay true to the primary mission of educating our children so that they will come out prepared to be productive members of society. We should spend our precious time and energy on how best to handle the ongoing problems we as a school system face. Believe it or not, our parents can see through the smoke and mirrors when it comes to choosing the best educational option for their children. In this week of celebrating Thanksgiving, I do thank God for allowing me to live in this great country. Just as the Puritans came to this land to flee religious persecutions and to have a new life, my parents brought me and my sisters to America to flee the inevitable takeover of Hong Kong by communist China. We found a new life here, even though we had to start from the bottom. It wasn't easy growing up a minority and in poverty, but I never felt like I was shortchanged. In fact, I felt that America, being the land of opportunity, gave my family a way out of poverty, and I never valued myself or others based on external characteristics. And as it says in the Bible in 1 Samuel 16:7, "For the Lord sees not as man sees. Man looks on the outward appearance, but the Lord looks on the heart." So I firmly believe that America was founded on these Judeo-Christian principles, and that we as Americans have striven to look past the externals and into the heart, to value people based on the content of their character. So in this Thanksgiving season, I urge you all to say a prayer for your neighbors, even the ones that you may not agree with. Maybe even share a meal together and get to know them as people. That would be a truly God-honoring thing to do. Thank you.
Mr. Hershey?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
All right, thank you. I want to first of all, I apologize for not being there. I thought it best, having COVID, not to share that for Thanksgiving. I want to start by standing with my fellow board members and just taking a moment to give my condolences to the families of Dr. West and Ralph Capps and Betty Lou Ward. So many wonderful tributes by fellow board members that I don't need to add to, but I just admire them enormously and their dedication to our communities, to our students, to our families. I thank them for their work, and they will be remembered. Next, I want to announce that our next BAC meeting for District 6 will be December 6th from 12 to 1 at Douglas Elementary School. We will be talking in roundtable discussions about transportation and our bell schedules, two extremely important topics that I know are being discussed now at the highest levels of central services. I want to thank, sorry if my thoughts are a little clouded. I want to thank Lynn Road Elementary School PTA for having me at their school PTA meeting. I want to encourage our families to join their PTAs or PTOs. At Sanderson High School, I know has a PTO. It is a wonderful way for you to be involved in your school. I know it really they play a terrific role in helping out our students and uplifting our staff at schools. Lastly, I want to just congratulate Carroll Middle School on a wonderful performance. I took my family and we watched Shrek. It was fantastic. It was funny. It was put on by some really talented students of ours. Even the staff participated. And I want to bring up one thought I had when I was sitting in there. And this is kind of a challenge to our county and our county staff. We know that we have problems at some of our middle schools in getting our elementary schools to come into those middle schools. This is well known. It is certainly an issue at Carroll and other middle schools. And as I was sitting in there, I couldn't help but think of the opportunity of having third, fourth, and fifth graders watching that presentation or watching that show at that school as a way to start engaging students and families earlier. I know that that takes a lot for a principal, so the burden should not be on our principals. This should be on our staff at Central Services to help facilitate these things. But if we simply wait until students are in fifth grade to start engaging students and families about where they will go to middle school, and that's what we've been doing, we should not expect results to change. And I challenge our staff to change the way we approach it, because we have to start helping, we have to do a better job of helping our middle school succeed and keeping those elementary school students. I know Dr. Ng mentioned charter and private schools. We lose them in that area, and we know it, and we have to do a better job and start reaching out to parents sooner, and it cannot just be on the burden of an individual school. And I thank the chair for my time.
Thank you all though normally we're not as long-winded, I think we had a lot to grieve, celebrate, and reflect upon. So I thank you all for your patience. At this time, I'll take a motion for approval of the meeting minutes, but I do want to point out that item I, which is under the meeting minutes, we are pulling the minutes from the August 15th, 2023 meeting in order to make a correction. These minutes will be back on the agenda with the correction reflected at our next meeting. So with that change, I will now accept a motion to approve the meeting minutes.
So moved.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Mr. Hershey. Any opposed, nay? All right. I've been told by our attorney that if he doesn't speak up, I have to call him explicitly. So we're on this, Mr. Ramey. And also, thank you for being here with us today. You're normally not in that seat, but welcome. All right. We are now going to move on to public comment. Speakers commenting on the night's agenda will be heard before speakers commenting on other topics. All other speakers will be heard in order of sign up. Only the person speaking at the podium will be able to stand. All attendees that are not speaking are asked to remain seated. If the public portion of the agenda exceeds 30 minutes, board policy states that the board chair reserves the right to conduct other board business before inviting the remaining speakers to the podium. Members of the public are welcome to offer comments or criticism directed at substantive ideas, actions, or procedures of the board and individual board members. The laws and policies of North Carolina provide that issues or other concerns involving individual personnel and individual student matters are confidential and therefore not appropriate for the public comment settings. Those offering comments to the board, including students, may discuss issues and matters of general concern. Concerns related to personnel issues or student matters may be addressed through applicable WCPSS personnel, the grievance policy, or other applicable policies. In the interest of maintaining civility and decorum, speakers are encouraged to address their comments to the Board of Education and to refrain from personal attacks and insults directed at the board, individual board members, staff, or other members of the general public. Please remain at the podium during your speaking time. Any materials you wish to share with the board should be handed to the board attorney, Mr. Ramey, either before or after your comments. During public comment, you may speak for up to 3 minutes. Please note those microphones are adjustable. When you begin speaking, the green light will illuminate showing your 3 minutes has begun. A yellow light will light up along with an audible tone when there are 30 seconds remaining in your time, and when your speaking time is up, you will see a red light and hear another audible tone. And then the next speaker will be called. And so, hold on, I just need to navigate to another window. I'll get there, everybody. And so our first speaker is, I'm not looking for a drum roll, I'm just looking for the email. No, we're good. Is Rowan Bilodeau, followed by Susan Book.
Okay, first I would like to say happy birthday, Mr. Swanson. So, Ms. Caulfield, you mentioned that you would like to hear from students about specific or general mental health issues in schools. So I think that what I've prepared can fit with that. So today I'm going to be talking about something sort of a difficult topic. So I'd just like to inform everyone of that so you know it might be uncomfortable. Something I've heard from people who speak here is that diversity and equity needs to be removed from schools, and that is a huge problem. Yesterday was Transgender Day of Remembrance. On that day, we mourn the lives of trans people lost throughout time. We grieve over every loss, but especially murders and suicides. Brandon Tino was a transgender man from Nebraska. He fell in love with a girl who knew that he was trans and loved him nonetheless. One night at a party, two men forced Brandon to strip so they could show his girlfriend what he really was, in quotes. Later, they assaulted Brandon and forced him into a car where they drove to a secluded area so they could rape him. Eventually, Brandon escaped, but the men found him again. They shot and stabbed him to death. Leela Alcorn was a transgender teen. Before committing suicide, she wrote that the world had been so unkind to her and she couldn't take it anymore. She also wrote that she hoped her suicide would create a dialogue about the abuse of trans people in hopes that newer generations of trans people would never know what it feels like to choose death over life because of their identity. Sadly, it's still the case. Brandon Tino was murdered in 1993. Leela Alcorn killed herself in 2014, but it's still happening in 2023. I'll be honest with you, being transgender is really difficult and sometimes I seriously hate it. But it's just who I am, and I can't change that. I've been the target of so much violence and hate and cruelty, and sometimes I feel like I'd rather die than have to suffer like that. Even though I know it can and likely will be used against me, I will open up and be vulnerable with you. I've tried to act on those feelings of being so mistreated that I was desperate for death and an end to my suffering. I was willing to die because I couldn't take the pain. I'm just so tired. I want to live a life without hatred and cruelty. I want to grow old after living a full life. But everyone just wants to hurt me, and they want to hurt kids that want nothing more than to be accepted. The rate of murders and suicides of trans people is asinine. The rate of assault and harassment is outrageous. People have threatened to kill me. People take photos of me and post them on things like the Northwood R-word Instagram. Someone threatened to shoot me because I used the boys' bathroom, and for the same reason, a group of 3 boys threatened to gang rape me. I've experienced numerous types of sexual harassment, people grabbing my butt, catcalling and moaning at me, telling me to pull my pants down so they can see what I actually have, etc. I've also been sexually assaulted. I was raped by a boy who thought it would fix my transness. It has to end. These things happen at the grocery store, in the gas station, in the bathroom, and even right at school. Why? What have I done to deserve this? And please don't say it's because God is punishing me for being trans, because I would never want to believe in a God who made rape and abuse a consequence for something he doesn't like. I'm a person, and I'm so tired of the disrespect and violence and hate. Thank you to those of you on the board who's... Dang it.
Susan Book, followed by Chad Stahl.
Hello, happy Thanksgiving. Happy birthday to board member Tyler Swanson. In this season of gratitude, I'd like to thank the board for thinking of those of us who regularly attend board meetings. I'd like to thank you about Policy 2310. This is a wonderful place where democracy can flourish. I'm afraid it is also a place where hateful words have been said. This is the antithesis of a flourishing democracy. When folks fear being bullied or targeted, they do not stand at this podium. I have sometimes attempted to organize other parents to come and give their feedback on board policy. The reaction so many everyday parents tell me is that in this current climate, many do not feel safe to do so. With the new policy on public comment, I hope we can begin to encourage more folks to attend and increase the voices that we hear. I hope that our Wake County School Board continues to embrace inclusion. We have a long way to go, including language access. But with these new rules, I hope we are in for a welcome change and encourage more people to participate in the democratic process. I also want to add in this season of gratitude a positive remark about the staff, administration, and teachers at Reedy Creek Magnet Middle. I am in awe of the support I've seen and the acknowledgement of what it means to be neurodivergent in the world. I can always pick apart things that are negative or can be improved, but in so many ways, the school has exceeded my expectations. The curriculum assistance provided is amazing, as well as the other supports, including emotional support. I hope the board and staff continue to open up more opportunities and more schools to provide Autism Standard Course of Study, which provides more than just standard autism support programs. Currently, there are only 4 middle schools, and I just checked the website and it appears only 2 high schools that provide this service. I hope we are looking at the success stories and expanding this program. Thank you.
Chad Stahl, followed by Margaret Billy-Dew.
Good evening. Watching her cough and you react to it, it's cracking me up. I'd like to read an email from June the 9th from Mr. Hagerty. To give a little context, we were emailing, I think I emailed all of the board, because for me personally, the book reading and all those things, I thought, you know, how long are we really going to go on and have to hear that language, the unintended harm that may come from that being published on YouTube, where any child can watch it from one of your laptops, right, at any age level. So one of the responses I got back, which I think is interesting, this is coming from Mr. Hagerty. First Amendment court cases have many fine and particular specifics about what is allowed and what is not allowed under U.S. Supreme Court interpretation. Sometimes these seem inconsistent, and sometimes over the decades they change. But that is what guides what our attorney feels can and cannot be said. There is some discretion, but the legal advice is to err on the permissive side. So when I saw like policy 2310, I thought, well, that doesn't make sense to me. Why? Because to be honest, Lindsay, I think you're doing a fantastic job running the show from the chair when anyone gets out of line. I think you've been spot on all year. So I just don't think it's necessary. I think it's also a distraction. But then I saw a little blurb from the Taylor Bullock thing. And there's a line, she asks board to consider how they can use their power and privilege to be intentional and disruptive on writing policies to mitigate policies that contribute to harm of students. So then I thought, well, that's interesting. So you're writing a policy that says, hey, don't insult us, but you're gonna pay a person $3,000 to convince you that you're a white supremacist or a racist or a land stealer. And I'm thinking to myself, well, if you're getting that here for free, why do the taxpayers have to pay money for you to hear it from someone else? That doesn't make sense to me. The claim earlier today, right, that you're contributing to the economy, how? How is it that you're contributing to the economy? The money that you make comes from taxpayers. What is it that you generate? Do you sell education? I don't think so. Your classrooms are poor, and yet you boast all of the success of the nonprofits that are enriching themselves. Your children can't read, and yet you boast the success of nonprofits teaching your children how to read. So then to come up here and say, well, but if you say something that offends me, you're gonna get kicked out, you're gonna get reprimanded? It's not necessary. You're doing a wonderful job managing it from your seats, from your chairs, and the whole, like, I mean, the racist training blows my mind. It absolutely blows my mind. I'm in a mixed race house, married to a woman of another race. I have a mixed race child. But yet no one's advocating for any other race. Thank you.
Margaret Billy-Dew, followed by Kristen Morrison.
Gonna finish Rowan's. Thank you for those of you on the board who stand with transgender people and don't support the intolerance. Keep Wake County safe. I want to stay, but if I'm in danger, I won't be able to. Educate people about trans issues. Don't educate them to hate us. Treat us like people. We should not live in a world that has killed so many trans people that there's a whole day to mourn them. Brandon, Leela, and everyone else, rest in peace, rest in power. Members of the audience and of the general public, I'm begging you to stop. There's so much hate against us, and there's only so much we can take before it breaks us. And I know what it feels like to be broken. It's not fun, and I almost didn't make it out alive. Please end this. Thank you. And then I'm Margaret Billy-Dew, mom of 4, 2 kids who are in public schools in Wake County. Just brought Rowan back to Wake County, bringing money back into public schools. I'm here again to continue to advocate for equity and inclusion in education. A common theme that we hear here at the board meetings very frequently is an admonition that you all are going to answer for and to Jesus or God or whatever it is that, for whatever it is that you do that is disagreed with. It's incredibly problematic to try to bring religion into public education because let's face it, not everyone that goes to public school in the United States, or more specifically North Carolina, or even more specifically Wake County, is Christian.
And people that are Christian or identify as Christian aren't even the same sect or denomination with beliefs across the spectrum, some of which conflict with one another. So we don't have a universal morality or even a universal Christian morality. In fact, even though the United States was founded on the principle of religious freedom, in the beginning of the US colonization, different groups of Christians were marginalizing and killing each other based on their beliefs. Each individual has to answer to their own conscience and whomever they represent. At the end of the day, we're a salad bowl, unique ingredients all stirred together into a delicious meal. Each ingredient retains its individuality, yet together they make something even more beautiful. Our schools can and should be a safe place for every student, educator, support staff person, family member, etc. A place where they are represented and respected so that they have the mindset necessary to learn. Let's keep things going in that direction. Thank you.
Kristen Morrison, followed by John Baylog.
Good evening. Thank you for your time tonight and for your public service, and happy birthday. I'm the parent of a 4th grader and a rising kindergartner, and I'm joining you tonight to ask that you adjust the 23-24 school calendars in order to keep students out of school buildings on Tuesday, March 5th, 2024. That's the date of the 2024 presidential primary election. In 2022, the board made the decision to adjust school calendars for the November election days to keep students out of school, and this was a decision that I myself am personally very grateful for, and many other Wake County parents are also grateful for. At that time, however, the 23-24 calendar was not revisited to consider the spring election dates. This academic year, the spring election is going to draw much larger voting populations than the municipal elections that happened earlier this month. As it stands right now, all school calendars are in session on March 5th, 2024. 58,000 students attend the 78 school buildings that will be used as polling locations on that day. These include 57 elementary schools, 14 middle schools, and 7 high schools. Per the Wake County Board of Elections, there were almost 61,000 in-person election day voters in the precincts that are currently assigned to school polling locations in the last presidential primary election in 2020. On November 2nd, I emailed all school board members a spreadsheet of data which came from publicly available sources, which I hoped would be helpful to your conversations and discussions on this topic. There are several safety reasons why many other Wake County parents and I are concerned about students sharing their school buildings with voters on election days. Voters do not follow the same procedures that typical school visitors must follow in order to enter the school buildings. Additionally, cones, ropes, and hallway monitors are inadequate barriers for preventing armed or ill-intentioned people from gaining access to students in shared spaces like cafeterias, libraries, gyms, and restrooms, places that voters will be. Moreover, such a large volume of extra car traffic on school campuses creates parking and carpool issues and safety issues, which are frustrating for both voters and for parents. At this time, there are banked instructional days in the calendars that can and maybe should be used to keep students out of school buildings on March 5th, 2024. Adjusting the school calendars now gives ample time and notice to families and child care centers to make adjustments to their plans. I really appreciate your time and consideration of this issue. Student safety needs to remain our collective top priority. Thank you.
John Baylog, followed by Teresa Jones.
I hope you all have a blessed Thanksgiving, and good evening, board members. Thank you for your time. I understand that most of you attended the We Are seminar last week, which was about $3,000. We Are is an acronym for Working to Extend Anti-Racist Education. Their mission statement says, We Are collaborates with children, families, and educators to dismantle systemic racism in schools and beyond. So the obvious question is, can you define the systemic racism in Wake County schools and beyond? Which schools? What are the symptoms? Where are the numbers? Are they on the WCPSS website? We Care promotes racial identities, historical racial constructs, racial justice, anti-racist practices, anti-racist education. So I'm just curious how much time is spent in the classroom promoting this instead of the curriculum. The WCPSS Office of Equity Affairs, OEA, has systematically trained teachers across the district in critical race theory with the goal of implementing it in the classroom and implicit bias included as a core component of that training. With the addition of new data for fiscal year 2021 and 22, the overall budget has risen slightly from $8.6 million to $8.69 million, an increase of $200,000. Equity has become your and our money pit. Directors, VPs, it will only grow. Every corporation that starts the equity road just builds more and more administration. Unfortunately, the return on investment is dismal and the taxpayers pay. Equity is not equality. Equity pulls a top performer down to become level with a mediocre performer. They will not be equal, they will become the same. A good example is a government job based on levels and steps. You show up, after time you all progress the same. Time is a factor, not work output, not pride in your work, not based on merit. Merit is how you perform. What are your results? Is this the ethic you want to install in our students? Being the same, not exceptional, sounds Marxist. It is. If you really get into the definitions of equity, it is a Marxist base. How much time is spent in the classroom promoting this instead of curriculum? The trainer for We Care, Rhonda Taylor Bullock, was named Engineering Black Leader by VP Kamala Harris in March of this year during a White House Black History Month event. The same Kamala who is the country's border czar, the border that is secure with over 10 million illegal crossings. Actually, Kamala is the best example of equity in the government today. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Teresa Jones, followed by Andrew Branch.
Good evening. The PTA believes all students have the right to a quality, equitable education in a safe, supportive, and inclusive school. We believe that every student has the ability to reach their full potential when the environment is one in which students feel they belong. With the passage of SB 49, the North Carolina legislature has put many of our students and families at risk. Indeed, the so-called Parents' Bill of Rights violates the very mission and purpose of our schools. SB 49 creates a discriminatory, hostile environment for LGBTQ+ students and their families by taking two proven lifelines away from them: supportive teachers and school materials and books that affirm their identities and experiences. We know from decades of research that LGBTQ youth are at greater risk for mental health struggles. Being LGBTQ+ does not cause mental health problems, but because these kids often face factors like peer rejection, targeted bullying, discrimination, and acts of violence, they are at a higher risk for depression and anxiety, and an alarming 45% have seriously considered attempting suicide in the past year. Research also suggests that school climate is a significant protective factor for LGBTQ+ youth. The U.S. Department of Education has used this research to create a toolkit that supports LGBTQ+ students and families. Key factors including developing thoughtful and intentional anti-bullying policies, providing professional development for educators, and protecting LGBTQ+ students from book bans. Additionally, research shows when schools implement these supportive policies and practices, all students experience better health outcomes. WCPSS knows that a diverse school community that is inviting, respectful, inclusive, flexible, and supportive is the key to student success. It is written in your core beliefs. The new strategic plan has made student dispositions and well-being a priority, setting the high goal that by 2028, 90% of Wake County students will demonstrate essential social-emotional competencies. However, these skills cannot be realized by a student who must hide a core part of their identity while they are at school. Additionally, the equity policy states that the board expects an equity lens to be applied to all policies, programs, practices, and decisions. When applying this standard to SB 49, we see that it not only violates the equity policy, but deliberately excludes certain students and families from full participation and inclusion in their schools. The Wake PTA Council respectfully asks the school board to consider the myriad of ways that SB 49 violates the board's strategic plan, the equity policy, national standards for school counselors, counselors, and Title IX before implementing any policies to enforce SB 49. Thank you and happy Thanksgiving.
Our next speaker is Andrew Branch, followed by Jen Shorter.
My name is Andrew Branch. I did not leave home this morning planning to speak, so I apologize for any disorganization and for how I'm dressed. When I took online classes for teacher licensure with UNC Charlotte around 2016, I don't recall receiving any implicit bias training with all the social justice jargon. I did, however, get some simple pointers. For example, a group of black friends in the hallway, if you will, is going to have a baseline volume level, just a slightly bit louder than your typical group of white friends, and different cultures interact differently. Don't be surprised. Hearing that noise doesn't inherently mean rowdy or that a fight is about to break out. See how easy that was without jargon, without cliches dividing people up and categorizing identities with privilege and discrimination, oppressed or oppressor, as if everything is zero-sum. You don't need critical theory to love your students. Ask questions. Ask how your policies affect different groups. Those are good things. But is it really that difficult for a teacher to distinguish between a disrespectful student and one who is, if you will, learning while black? In some cities, police stopped policing certain neighborhoods or certain crimes because they were arresting too many black people, who then became a higher share of the victims of crime. In some cities, schools were closed well into 2021, citing COVID danger to people of color, which kids have shown more learning loss. Oregon last month suspended a requirement that students show mastery of reading, writing, and math in order to graduate, citing harm to students of color. Is this situation a bit more complicated than that headline? Yes, but it's not less complicated. The equity elites have done more to infantilize and harm students of color than they care to admit. What else do you get? Young white men, once again taught to be hyper-aware of their skin color, now feeling the need to stand up for themselves, when the implication is that, to be crass, you people are the cause of all this country's problems, past and present. Slogans like, it's okay to be white, are the best you can hope for. It's dangerous. When Black Lives Matter rioted in 2020 after seeing a man die on video, many of us thought we understood. But after October 7th, multiple BLM chapters and a UNC student group with a paraglider poster issued support for the terrorists who videotaped their murders. It wasn't the video. Something sinister is unleashed with critical theory worldview. You can ask these questions and serve and love all your students and communities without $1,500 an hour. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Jen Shorter, followed by Jeremy Miner.
Hi, my name is Jen Shorter. I'm the president of the Mills Park Elementary School PTA, and thank you so much for allowing me the chance to speak. I have come to you to congratulate our talented and dedicated counselors, Terry Armstrong and Nancy Snyder, as the recipients of the North Carolina School Counseling Diamond Award. I had to do a little research to find out more about this award. I'd like to share it with you. This award recognizes programs that demonstrate an exemplary, data-informed, and outcome-based comprehensive school counseling program. And when I spoke with Nancy earlier to tell her I was coming here, and she wanted me to stress that this was a collaborative effort, not only of the work that the counselors in our school did, but also Mr. Hegarty and some of the members of the central office staff. Some of the things that I really want to point out about this, this award and this program, it's an extensive application. It hits 11 different topics, and I can only imagine the amount of work that goes into it. I love that it's data-driven. They're using the information that they can get from the school systems to identify and help try to solve real problems. And this, as I was digging through, led me to look at a portrait of a graduate. And I just wanted to say SEL, I think, along with many things right now, is kind of coming under attack. But what I loved about Portrait of a Graduate is that it's another collaborative effort, and they worked with not only education at many different levels, but also employers in North Carolina to see what can help make our graduates successful. And the skills that SEL is teaching, they call them durable skills, are what employers are looking for. So this is important work that is being done. I know these are difficult times and there is a lot more work to be done, but we should continue to recognize the important and good work that is happening. So again, congratulations not only to the Mills Park counselors, but to all recipients of this award. And thank you to all those who work diligently to attract and retain professionals of this caliber to our school system. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Jeremy Miner, followed by Catherine Rodriguez.
All right, I'm Jeremy Miner. I'm a student, well, I'm a parent of a former student of WCPSS. He was a special education student. You know, we tried to work it out through the IEP process. We hired a professional professional IEP advisor to come in. She tried to work it out. We couldn't work it out. So after months and months and months of that, we finally filed a due process hearing. We went through the due process hearing. We won the due process hearing. As Darrington Smith is very aware, but I want to read what the judge wrote. After considering a hearing on the merits, let's just get down to it. The undersigned concludes that Wake County Board of Education denied student a free, appropriate education by not timely revising the behavioral goals in the individual education plan and behavior intervention plans to address his shifting behavior needs, by not implementing with fidelity his BIP and delivery of his social emotional skill instruction, and by not timely considering the IEEs, we didn't have the appropriate IEPs, we didn't have appropriate BIPs, we didn't have, so she rewarded us 402 hours of compensatory services. Currently, Wake County Board of Education is refusing to implement this. So, you know, at this point, you know, we're having to pay for all the services that are ordered in our judgment. We're having to pay for all the services that are ordered in our judgment right now. You know, yeah, all I can say about it is I'm shamed. You know, I'm ashamed of you all. You continue to, you know, you've been found to deny my son a free, appropriate public education, and you continue to deny my son a free, appropriate public education. As we're going forward with this, back in May of this year, I asked for a public records request for the costs that you all were spending to defend these lawsuits, because this is ongoing. This lawsuit's ongoing. You know, my guess is you're spending millions of dollars to defend these lawsuits, and here we're going to go for more and more and more. I know what I've spent on this lawsuit, and it's a large amount. So, you know, you're denying these requests, and we get to go further into debt, and you all get to spend more and more of the public's money, you know, unwisely, because, you know, there's no chance of y'all coming, you know, there's no chance of you winning against it right now. So, I mean, we can go forward, but I'm ashamed to say that I have to deal with you all.
Our final speaker tonight is Catherine Rodriguez.
Hello, I'm here to speak about Draft 1310. As the largest school district in North Carolina, Wake County has an opportunity to be a leader and stand up to the General Assembly and refuse to comply with the sections of the law that discriminate against LGBTQ students and families. As elder activist Maggie Kuhn said, stand before the people you fear and speak your mind, even if your voice shakes. When you least expect it, someone may actually listen to what you have to say. Well-aimed slingshots can topple giants, and do your homework. Campaign for Southern Equality has done its homework to show schools are unable to comply with SB 49 or 1310 because they violate Title IX, by creating a hostile educational environment for LGBTQ students. This includes requiring the outing of trans students, regardless of whether this puts the student in danger, and mandates school surveillance of library selections, textbooks, and instructional materials targeting LGBTQ content, and bars instruction on sexual orientation and gender identity through 4th grade. Title IX states no person in the United States shall, on the basis of sex, be excluded from participation in, be denied the benefits of, or be subjected to the discrimination under any education program or activity receiving federal financial assistance. Justice Neil Gorsuch stated, "It's impossible to discriminate against a person for being homosexual or transgender without discriminating against that individual based on sex." By the same logic, Title IX bars discrimination against LGBTQ students. Schools violating Title IX risk litigation and losing their federal education funding. In addition, Wake County would be in violation of its own Policy 1710, which prohibits discrimination on the basis of race, color, national origin, sex, sexual orientation, gender or gender identity, disability, or age. Any form of unlawful discrimination, harassment, or bullying, as defined in this policy, in any educational or employment activities or programs is against board policy. Beyond refusing to comply with SB 49, Wake County should follow the lead of Chatham County and Carlborough Chapel Hill school districts and pass a resolution affirming their support for LGBTQ students and families. Thank you.
This concludes public comment. We now move on to our consent items. Is there a motion to approve the consent item agenda?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Are there any questions, comments, concerns? Yes, Ms. Caulfield.
Thank you. Just a couple of clarifying questions. The Wake Together and Helps. I am in the right section, right?
Yes.
It kept closing out on me. How do we, is there a list of schools that are getting it? Is it going to be applied to all schools? I know at one point Helps was a pilot program. Trying to understand what number of schools have it. Do we have any information on that?
Not in this. This is approving the contract in order to continue work with HELP and expand upon it. But when we were in executive, I did ask when we would be getting an update. We saw some of the work with that, so I'm sure they can get you a list of schools and what we're planning on expanding to via email. Okay. I know I see Mr. Cook nodding his head, and I was also told that an update on that will be coming, I believe, in January or February on where we are with the high-impact tutoring.
Okay. I was just wondering what the contract specifically was, because it's just, the contract is to reapprove, right?
Yeah, so,
Okay.
yes.
All right, I'll wait for that email.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, are there any further questions or comments? All right, seeing none, all those in favor of approving the consent items?
Aye.
All right, any opposed, nay? All right, we now move on to our action items.
Ms. Mahaffey,
yes, sir?
for the minutes, were you able to record a vote from Mr. Hershey?
I heard him.
Okay.
Yes.
I did not. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ramey. We now move on to the final draft of our enrollment plan for 24-25. There was a robust discussion and review of this final draft in our work session, which can be seen via YouTube. So if there's a question that we miss, I encourage folks to go and review that. And I know Ms. Pulliam and her folks will have more information, and we may be repeating questions tonight. So I'll hand it over to Ms. Pulliam.
Thank you. Chair Mahaffey, Vice Chair Higgerty, Superintendent Taylor, and members of the board, I'm here to present the 2024-2025 enrollment plan. I would like to take this opportunity to thank the board and our senior leadership team for their support as this year's enrollment plan was drafted, reviewed, revised, and finalized. Additionally, as this is a collaborative effort, I would like to personally recognize Rob Sywek in the Geospatial Analytics Office, Kim Lane and Tamani Anderson-Powell in the Magnet Office, Marcella Rory in Long Range Planning, and Betty Parker in Real Estate Services for their support, encouragement, and thoughtful reflections throughout the process. In addition, Bob Sneidmiller, Bonnie Sluter, and Joy Milan in our Transportation Department for their support and collaboration as we refined recommendations aiming to improve transportation efficiency. And Sandy Honeycutt and Carrie Fuller in Technology Services for their work ensuring all our student information systems and applications are accurate and ready for implementing the approved plan. I would like to especially thank my directors, Eric Chansey and Louis Ambrico, along with our entire enrollment and transfer team, Kim, Shauna, Zulema, April, Ashley, Carrie, Sandra, and Haley for their creativity, elevating the voices of our families, and for their willingness to provide help and support when needed. As you may be aware, we lost a dear member of our team this fall. And I would be remiss if I didn't take a moment to share that although Dawn C. Baker is and will continue to be missed, her contributions to our work will endure. I would like to recognize the entire geospatial analytics team, Ryan, Dan, Judy, and Molly, for their help and support in mining, organizing, and visualizing our data for more effective analysis and for developing enhanced online tools for parents to learn about the plan. Also, Mike Miller with Numerix LLC for his work in developing and running models and scenarios. His insight and perspective are invaluable in this process. My gratitude is unending for the support of Corrali Tornow in the Communications Department. Her work and support in ensuring that our public engagement process is authentic, well organized, and easily accessed by our families is impeccable. Further, I would like to recognize Assistant Superintendent Carroza and Chief Ellis. Your insight, support, and encouragement throughout this process have allowed me and my team to do our best work. Lastly, and certainly not least, I would like to thank our WCPSS community as a whole. Families, community members, staff, and other stakeholders throughout the county have actively contributed to the development of this plan through their honest and thoughtful participation in all of our public engagement activities. Now, back to the enrollment plan. With one new school opening in the 2024-25 school year, Woods Creek Elementary, and a continued need to relieve capped and overcrowded schools, to fill underutilized schools, to address historical assignment areas, and to support transportation efficiency, this year's plan includes base assignment changes and calendar application changes to address these goals. It also includes generous stability rules that promote stability of school assignment for impacted families. The process for developing this year's enrollment plan began with an initial planning discussion with the board during our work session on May 2nd of 2023. Prior to that work session, staff hosted 7 regional public engagement sessions asking families in areas impacted by future new school openings what district leadership should be aware of and take into consideration when managing enrollment growth and school crowding, as well as when opening a new school in the community. A summary of the feedback collected was shared during a work session on June 20th of this year. Feedback gathered during the work session on May 2nd and collected from these regional public engagement sessions, along with an analysis of the needs of the district, led to the development of the first draft of the enrollment plan. The first draft was reviewed and presented at the September 19th board work session. After that meeting, staff launched a thought exchange and hosted 4 virtual public information sessions to engage our community in sharing their thoughts, comments, and questions regarding the recommendations included in the first draft. The second draft of the plan was reviewed and presented at the October 17th board work session. After that meeting, staff launched additional thought exchanges and hosted 2 virtual public information sessions to, again, engage our community in sharing their thoughts, comments, and questions, not only regarding the second draft of the plan, but also the potential of converting Pleasant Grove Elementary to a year-round calendar. Additionally, the board held its own public hearing on November 8th to solicit and capture feedback from the community. The plan was most recently reviewed and presented as a final draft earlier today during the board work session. The total number of students projected to be reassigned is just over 1,500, which is less than 1% of the district population, and approximately 73% of those students are eligible for a stability transfer. When given final board approval, the final draft of the plan will be implemented for the 2024-25 school year. Families directly impacted by the approved plan will be contacted as soon as possible early next week with some specific instructions regarding the process for requesting a stability transfer. Stability requests for students eligible under these rules that are included in this year's plan and are submitted in the designated window will be approved and will be valid through the last grade of the school. Tonight, we request the board's approval of the 2024-25 enrollment plan as presented during the work session held earlier today.
Thank you, Ms. Pulliam. And again, that was presented at the work session because it was an hour-and-a-half long conversation and discussion. And again, that is available. Is there a motion from board members? We have
And
a
for
motion
clarity's
for,
sake, motion to approve.
a motion to approve and a second. All right, questions, comments, and discussion for Ms. Pulliam. Mr. Swanson?
Thank you. I want to thank the staff for the work that you all put into this, and to the public for all the feedback that they provided to us. I have a couple of questions. I know we heard during the comments, but could you explain how we work with municipalities and other county staff as we are talking about in measuring growth?
Sure. A separate entity, our long-range planning department, helps spearhead this effort. But with that group, what we do is we work with the county planners, and all the municipalities that are within the county on an annual basis. In fact, we've just wrapped up the review process for the upcoming forecast. That process helps us to get as much as we can, and our partners in the community are very helpful, and they're very permissive with giving us information about projected and approved residential plans, as well as other plans. And then all of that is factored into a long-range planning process where we use that along with some economic factors. I'm going to speak out of turn a little bit because it's not my project, but all of that information is shared on our website as well. But they work together to collaborate to get those projected growth by region, those projected growth numbers by region, as well as to come up with an agreed upon projected growth on an annual basis to partner with the county for the budget process.
Thank you. And the reason why I'd raised that question is because I wanted folks to understand that our municipalities hold a great deal of knowledge and information as we are going through looking at what's best for students when we are approving and plans. So we had to, I think my colleague had talked to us about smart growth and understanding what that looks like. So that was one that I just wanted to raise. So thank you.
Ms. Caulfield?
I just wanted to say thank you because I know that you guys really put a lot of effort into it. And just, I mean, since I've been following the school board, one of the biggest complaints was that families wanted to be closer to their schools and come together. And I think that in the plan that you provided to us, you really did go very far to try and do that as much as possible. And it's not going to be perfect for everyone, and I want everybody that is out there listening to understand, like Ms. Edwards said, it is not easy for us to make a decision for those families that come to us. We do hear you, and some of us have actually been in that seat, you know, so I do understand movement, transition. It's going to be hard for kids, it's going to be hard for families, but in the long run, with the transportation issues we have, with the stability issues that we have, I do understand the decisions and the way that you did it and how in the long run it's going to help our families. So I just wanted the public to hear that. It is not an easy decision for us to move families at all, and that's not what we want. But with transportation and all the other factors that come into place, sometimes that some of those boundaries are going to be touched and people are not going to be happy. But we do understand that, so I wanted the public to hear that, and thank you very much for all the effort you put forward.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. I wanted to give my colleagues an opportunity before I monopolize the conversation. As you know, and based on a number of the comments we've seen on Thought Exchange, families that have come out to speak at the public hearings and at our public comment, there are a lot of people in the northwestern part of the county that have some specific thoughts on the program or on the proposed plan. If you heard me earlier, I did want to acknowledge and thank a lot of the families that have come out and have been very involved, very engaged, and really tried to get into understanding like the why and the how behind the program. And I think, I need to honor their hard work and make sure we acknowledge just how many questions they raised that they brought to your staff. And so, I know that we brought formal documents that have been compiled, petitions, and so I just wanted to go through. I didn't know if you'd had a chance, because there's so many people that respond, if you had been able to respond to any of those families, either individually or as a group, about any of the alternatives they had raised.
Sure. A lot of the information that you did share with us with the packets that you received were very similar, if not exactly the same as what we had received in Thought Exchange. And so most of those have been addressed through our Draft 2 FAQs that have been posted to the website, many of which we went over in work session as well. But I'm happy to address any specific questions that you'd like to make sure that they're fully responded to.
Okay, if you could, y'all would bear with me, just a few. The first one actually doesn't have anything to do with one of the parts of the plan that had gotten the most work, but you had discussed it today, which was several families had reached out to myself, and I know they'd also communicated with Dr. Ng and with Mr. Hershey about the Evans Mill neighborhood that was seeking a middle school reassignment.
Sure.
And, you know, looking at that, they had made representations that their neighborhood was in favor of a suggested reassignment. It wasn't part of the original draft. And they were showing the 4 pillars behind it, and, you know, I thought made an interesting case for it, but it wasn't included in the plan. Can you just share some of the reasons why that public suggestion wasn't included, and any ideas going forward?
Thank you for that. We actually thought that the recommendation had some merit for that particular neighborhood. The challenge we have is they are not the only neighborhood in that same predicament, and so to highlight and resolve a single neighborhood when there's a much larger group of families that are in the exact same situation seemed a bit premature. And so our recommendation would be to look at that going into next year's enrollment plan and take a larger look and get more families engaged in the conversation. We certainly understand that one neighborhood is for it, but there's a much larger geography that's impacted with many more students that they may not have been aware of.
So you're telling me you're coming back next year? Bless you, Ms. Pulliam. So, some other questions, but
we have 5 new schools we're opening next year.
We do. Some of the families have asked about possibly delaying parts of the plan for a year. Sure. And could you talk about some of the implications of that, if that's a feasible option for the board to consider?
Sure. Everything is on the table. The concern from staff's perspective, certainly with the Woods Creek opening, delaying a year we think would be ill-advised with the need to sufficiently operate in that school. The recommendations related to the central and northern and northeastern areas related to getting students that are currently assigned to schools like Leesville Elementary, Leesville Middle, and Leesville High to schools that are closer to home. We'd like to strike while the iron's hot and get these students to schools that are closer to home while the capacity is available and the support works for them. That then creates a domino where there would be a number of seats that are made available at Leesville Elementary. It would be a significant reduction. So if we don't take advantage of that opportunity to get other students closer to their school, we're just delaying the ability to get students to schools closer to home on that side of it. There's another portion that's related to Bryan Road and also Alston Ridge and Parkside. These schools are extremely overcrowded. 2 of those that I just mentioned are already capped in multi-track. One is so crowded that if we don't make a reassignment, we're probably going to have to come to you with the capped recommendation, which we know is not really a long-term solution. And in each of these areas, there isn't new construction coming that can support the enrollment growth in these areas. Again, working with our municipal planners, to your question, we already know of the growth that's coming in these areas, and there's potentially more that we're learning about right now. So to delay that would only further exacerbate the crowding and cap situations at these schools. And so we just feel like delaying will only create more challenges for the families in these areas, as well as for the district and for our transportation concerns.
Thank you. And so when you talked about the transportation efficiencies, I know that several families had talked about like an additional transportation burden. How does that, what's the on balance with this reassignment plan? Sometimes we have to move families further away to accomplish other things, but then sometimes we can find ways, you know, where maybe we overreach. Where, when you looked at all of the moves in this plan, did we come out?
Sure. The sum total in talking with our Department of Transportation is that each move is at the very least neutral to the routing network, but in many cases is actually an improvement in reducing routes. So nothing that we've recommended would increase a burden on transportation.
All right.
It would just switch.
We talked about in work session a little bit. There's some families that have talked about this being the 4th or 5th reassignment for their neighborhoods in the last few years. And we do have a new middle school coming online and ultimately a new high school coming online. And you know, it is something to ask these families to make a change, knowing that we have to do it for the betterment of the whole county and the district. But there's also something about asking them to frequently make frequent changes. Can you talk about that and how the opening of the middle school might affect these families?
Sure. So if I understand your question correctly, we're really talking about the areas being recommended to be assigned from Alston Ridge and Parkside into Pleasant Grove. We did an analysis. The last time these areas had a reassignment was in 2009. Certainly not a distant past, but not within the last 3 to 6 years. And then if we look at, I'm sorry, 2019, I apologize, 2019. So that's within the last 4 to 5 years. And then prior to that, it was 2009. That's where I'm remembering that number. So they did, that particular area might have had multiple reassignments leading up to 2009, but there was sort of a quiet period between 2009 and 2019. So they have, the families that are living there now have not been subject to frequent reassignments in the last short period. But we do understand that any reassignment is destabilizing, and that I don't want to dismiss that concern. The other element with the Parkside Middle, with it being delayed to 2026, 27, the possibility, again, if it stays on schedule, there is a possibility that current 4th grade students could potentially, if they're reassigned this year, have the 5th grade